What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. I'm your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. That, of course, is the Freddie Mercury puppet. We are back with another banger of an episode. My guest is already here, so we are jumping in and off to the races immediately. Here we go with another one, folks. Let's do it. Hello, Troy.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me.
Do we have the same hairdresser?
I think so. We go to the same wig maker.
We do go to the same wig maker, and you know what? I'm caught dead to rights, man. I'm trying to do the whole David Lee Roth Jr. thing.
Well, it suits you well.
So far, it doesn't take off. Roth. Yeah,
David Lee Roth's not doing David Lee Roth, so you should do it.
Somebody's got it. Somebody's got it, and I'm glad you made that point because I did just go to see him. He came to the local casino here in upstate New York, and I think I built it up to want it to be more than it really actually was, though. And it is hard to see your heroes kind of fall into the wayside.
So, tell me about the show. What obviously, David Lee Roth's never really been a singer like Jeff Tate is a singer, but he's a great front man. He is Diamond Dave, right? The videos, it's all part of the deal. So, did he still have that swagger up there?
He had swagger. He gyrated. He joked. He did all that stuff. That he did a lot of hip thrusting and swiveling and dancing around or whatever, man. Obviously, and you make a good point. I don't think he's ever on record anywhere saying that he's the greatest singer in the world. Sure. Certainly a charismatic front man, all that stuff. His whole set list was pretty much, all of it was was Van Halen era stuff. His Van Halen era. So that was the whole show.
Man, I wish he would just do a couple of those solo tracks.
Me too. I would have liked to have heard Crazy from the Heat or Just Like Paradise or some of those tunes. Yeah, I wish he would have. I wish he would have sprinkled a couple in.
Something. It's the same thing Vince Neil doesn't do. I think he started doing You're Invited, but Your Friends Can't Come. But those two solo albums he put out are great. Play something else, anything, just another solo track. It was great. Steve Stevens on guitar. It was killer.
Yeah, it is hard though, man. And I think I had it built up to something in my mind that, wow, I'm going to see David Lee Roth. And how many more go-arounds and chances do you have to see these legendary guys? They're still out there doing it. But that might be the problem, though. And other people have addressed this too. Sometimes you just stand a little too long at the party, Yeah,
the thing is, though, I guess if people, in this day and age, if there is an artist that you want to see that's still out there or you didn't know was still out there, there's YouTube and you could go look, hey, I'd like to see what David Lee Roth is doing in 2025,
Right.
To go there completely ignorant to the performance you may or may not get is in this day and age just ridiculous. So, the other part is don't buy the ticket if you don't want to go, you can't go there expecting and so, well, I didn't know it was in 1987 again. It's like, come on,
Right. And that is unfair when people take their phone to these shows and want somebody to replicate what they did 40 years ago. That's just unfair, to try to do to somebody. who can do that? Even if Dave was a great singer, he's not going to be able to replicate what he did, as you said, like back in the 80s. Who really can? You kind of learn to make the adjustments. He's done something really smart where, first of all, he's got a great band. He's got a guy pulling off the Eddie stuff to a pretty decent degree. And he's got these three black soul singers who he's kind of found his register and kind of blends his voice in with them. It's a pretty smart, calculated move that he's doing.
Yeah, did he have three? Because I think when he did the M3, there was 5 of these guys. So he's cut the payroll a little bit.
I think he's cut the payroll a little bit. Yeah, I think he's cut the payroll. Yeah. I think he wants to take a nice lion's share of the money. The only thing that was a little disheartening, and I don't know how the rest of the tour has gone for him. I haven't really looked into the analytics of it all. But suddenly I get an email that hey, we're moving your seat, up, and I'm thinking, okay, this is good. And it turns out that he wasn't selling the house as good. It was a little bit of a lackluster crowd. So I think they wanted to pack everybody in and kind of make it look a little more full.
Sure. That happens. Better to move up as in forward versus up as in back in the nose. Which obviously they couldn't do that. But it's tricky to see how exciting it was when he did M3. Is like, oh my God. And I thought he did a pretty reputable job. And then it seems like this tour kind of was like, I didn't really have a lot of interest, but I think he's out there fulfilling all of his dates. But It's weird. You know, Dave's been weird because he, you know, retired. He was doing Vegas. That all ended. There was health issues. And then next thing you know, he shows up at M3 and now he's got a full tour going on. And hard to say why it was lukewarm.
I think what would have served him good, and maybe some of this is ego, and he just thinks that the Van Halen stuff from his era is so strong, man. But, you know, he came out. It was about an hour and a half long show. I think he would have been served with maybe someone else coming out and opening it up for him, just even for like a half an hour. You know what I mean? Like, I even went to see like the mighty, me and my wife went to see the mighty Billy Joel a couple years ago. And even Gavin Raw came out and did like a half an hour. And Billy Joel doesn't need an opening act. You know what I mean? Like, but, you know, just kind of somebody to act as like a buffer and just kind of, I don't know. I think it would have served Dave well to have somebody come out there. You know, I think it would have helped a little bit.
Yeah. So he was doing an evening with kind of vibe, huh?
Kind of an evening with. Yeah, an evening with. I'm always interested because I've done so many of these episodes. I want to ask you right off the rip, because artists seem to have a common story of growing up in musical households, maybe even musically proficient parents, records playing in their homes. Oh, was this the case for you?
Absolutely, 100%. So my dad had a record collection of all record collections of you know, everything. Obviously, Beatles and the Letterman and, you know, Sinatra, Dolly Parton. I mean, everything. And my brother Sean really got me into playing music because he was playing live at the age of 12, playing, you know, bars and grills and you know, restaurants that had a bar, and my dad would have to escort him there to make, you know, and he was in a copy band with 3 brothers that lived 2 doors down from us. So it was my brother and then these 3 brothers, Dan, Ted, and Tom. And Ted was a drummer, Dan, guitar player, Tom primarily sang and also played guitar. And my brother Sean was the youngest, but I go just a couple doors down and sit in the basement with them, watching them rehearse to play AC/DC and Aerosmith and Van Halen, you know, obviously. So, you know, definitely grew up, you know, at 7 a.m. trying to get up for school, and Van Halen's on the turntable.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. You know, so definitely a musical household, and, you know, live music at a young age. I started getting into it, you know, at the age of 12, taking lessons. All my friends in school were playing instruments, and I was like, hey, I want to do that too. So first concert was Dio and Rough Cut. And once I saw Dio and the almighty Vinny Appice up on stage, I was like, I want to do what that guy's doing. And that's how I got into drums.
So it was drums right out of the gate. There was never flirting with another instrument, because oftentimes I'll hear guys come on here and say, you know, even more so than choosing their instrument, sometimes the instrument even chooses them. You know what I mean? And I'm not even sure, you know, if that makes any sense to you or whatever. But, you know, but sometimes I find that the drums are not always, I mean, kids want to bang on stuff, and there is a glamour side to that. But a lot of guys want to shred. They want to be out in front of the stage. They're more glamorous positions. Was it always going to be the drums for you?
Yeah, the drums spoke to me. Outside of playing recorder, I think in school, you know, we all had that plastic recorder thing. You know, but outside of that, it was always drums. Vinny Appice and those drums up there on the riser and the lasers, and, you know, Dio shooting down, you know, the dragon, the whole thing. But it was the drums, and obviously Vinny Appice, such a powerhouse drummer that you just sit there and go, yeah, that's what I want to do.
And over the years, playing drums, because I've gotten a chance to talk to a lot of drummers on this podcast, there is a physicality to what you do. How has your health held up? Because I've talked to a lot of drummers who have had to change the height of their stool or the layout of their kit because they've had little back issues, shoulder issues, little impingements, aches and pains here and there. Have you experienced any of this?
You know, most of my physical pitfalls have come from playing softball, to be honest. I broke my hand sliding on my tush to try to grab a fly ball, and somehow my glove got caught into the turf, and I rolled over it and fractured here and my pinky. And this all happened the day before I went to LA for 4 shows in Mexico with Gilby Clarke. This is a few years ago. And then I had most recent, well, a couple years ago now, and I haven't played since. I really just perfect storm, tweaked my back. I thought I did something super serious. Went to the MRIs, got all that stuff. And I've got the narrowing, you know, you've got that in your vertebrae, and not enough fluid between your, you know, the things and stuff, all that stuff going on. And a lot of it is pretty normal. And, you know, the doctor said, you know, considering you're a drummer and you're sitting down and you're playing drums, you don't have any outrageous physicality to your spine. It's pretty normal. And in fact, he thought it would be much worse knowing that I was a drummer. But, outside of just the aches and pains of being over 50, I pretty much play the same kit. It's ergonomic enough for me. I do notice that my height of my stools come up a little bit, but I was always sitting at like 14 to 16 inches. Yeah. I had a special low boy snare stand that I since retired, but I've got DW's lowest now, and I sit at like 16, 17 these days. So a little on the higher side for me, but my legs are still at a 90 degree, and I feel like I get the most kick drum out of that, the most power.
Yeah. Now you've gotten the chance, and looking through just a lot of the people that you've been blessed to be able to play with. Is there anybody on the list, any act, any band, any project where you feel like or would point at and say, this was the creative high point for me. This is where I feel like I was really at my best.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I listened to some recordings I've done back in the day, and most of it was in original bands. And there was a band of 3 guys from the Midwest, but we all formed the band in LA called Dragon, and was a 3-piece, kind of blues rock thing. But, we kind of went some places. Some stuff was a little kind of folksy rock, but not like Dave Matthews or anything. But I mean, it was like more like Allman Brothers and that kind of stuff. And just listening to some of that stuff, I was like, wow, I used to be a pretty decent drummer, and some of the stuff I played with Mick Sueda. We had a band called Lollygag. Mick Sueda, former guitar player.
I've had Mick on the podcast a couple of times. He's a great guy. Yeah.
Mick's great. And some of the things that we accomplished in that band, I go back and listened, and I was like, wow, man, I was kind of out of my head in a good way, Yeah. And, these days, most of my career is playing with other artists that had they've got a legacy, and my job is to do my best to respect the drummer, respect the songs, and do it with my style though. But the creative part is always when you're in a band, because you're just 3 or 4 or 5 guys and girls kind of creating something, and you really can inject some influence in there. But when you're covering somebody else's music, it's really good to pay respect, but also have your style that you can, interject without taking away from the original stuff, So it's not so tricky, but it can be. You got to toe the line. You got to pay respect to the music, but do it with your style so you can do it with conviction.
So what would you say right now is your primary, gig, for lack of a better word? Are you still doing the White Lion stuff?
No, not doing any White Lion as of late. I stopped doing that back in 2009. Tramp and I are still good bros, and we're still in great communication. And one never knows. The door's never been shut on that. And if in 2026 you see me back behind the drums, maybe that'll happen. Still playing with Gilby Clarke, of course. Yeah. And we did last couple of years. We've done a lot of dates. We've gone to South America, Mexico, UK, Italy, Europe, and he's got another run with Glenn Hughes coming up. So we're trying to work out our schedules. Because at the end of the day, it's the Gilby Clarke band and whoever he can get to do it. But I'd like to think I'm the first guy that gets the phone call. And if not, there's great guys like Jimmy DeAnda, Jason Sutter. He's got great guys in his arsenal. So when you get the call, or like when you are like a musician, who gets tapped for these different projects, how do you get tapped? For people that might not know how the music scene works, is it word of mouth? Is it just going back years and years and having a relationship with these guys? How do you end up on the radar of a Gilby Clarke? Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Hanging out in the circles. Yeah, networking, hanging out in the circles, and then people knowing what you can bring to the table. I mean, listen, there's a lot of great drummers out there, a lot of fantastic drummers out there. I'd like to think I'm a good, dependable, meat and potatoes, solid drummer, plays for the song, but I'm not like a Portnoy, or a Neil Peart or a Brian Tishy. I'm not that kind of a drummer. Those guys are fantastic and influential guys. But I'd like to think that my knowledge of the business, being a good road partner, knowing how to travel, knowing how to help out with other things, advancing shows, booking shows, bringing shows to the table too. I think it's all those other things that kind of, make me you know, somewhat desirable sometimes over, God, this guy's a great drummer, but you know, maybe he doesn't travel well, or maybe he smokes, and that's you know, driving in the van for an hour and a half with a guy that smells like he's on fire.
Right.
Sometimes, you know, that's a big deal to some of these guys, you know. So, you know, I try to be as easy as possible, but you know, sometimes I know even I fail there too, you know. But yeah, word of mouth, networking, but people going, hey, with this guy, you'll also get these other things. He's got a merch company that can help out or whatever, you know. So it just depends on the gig, you know. Sometimes people just want a drummer, and I can do that too.
Now, as a drummer, I'd like to ask, taking a departure for a minute from your own career. I'm always intrigued because I'm not a musician myself, but I've asked other musicians on here for all the success that they've achieved. Metallica seems to be a band that people love to take shots at, specifically the drumming of Lars. Now, why is that? Because as I said, I'm not a musician. I don't understand the X's and O's in the technical terms. But why is he a guy that people seem to want to? Obviously, a guy that's had incredible success. I don't know, much like David Lee Roth. I don't think he's on record anywhere saying that he is, a superlative drummer or in the upper echelon of the greatest drummers in the world. But why is his drumming critiqued so much?
You know, I think it's that he's very kind of unorthodox, you know, and a lot of people say his meter, and what that means, like if he goes into a fill, like if he's in a groove, boom, snap, boom, and he goes into a fill, and the fill all of a sudden like rushes, you know, they go, oh wait, why is he rushing that fill, or why is he playing? You know, I mean, some people have said he sounds like shoes in a dryer, you know, but I got to tell you, he's the guy in Metallica, and he is a very unorthodox, like the fills he chooses to do are very unique to him and to that band. And, you know, you could get somebody else to play those drums, right? It wouldn't sound like, it wouldn't be the guy, you know, he's the guy that helps to find that sound. And, you know, I don't know why people pick on him so much. I mean, I get that he's unorthodox, but I see, and I was like, wow, that's a weird fill, but it works. It works for Metallica. Can he play in any other band? No. Could any other drummer just come in and play their stuff? Yeah, maybe, but not the way Lars does it. So there's only one Lars, and some people might say for better or for worse, but he's the guy Metallica, and I love the way he plays in that band for sure.
Yeah. It's just, because they're like a layman, and I went to see them on this last tour that they did, and they did a date here, and I'm in upstate New York. They did a date, Pantera, Suicidal Tendencies opening for them. And, to a layman, when you're sitting up there and you've heard these songs for years and years and years, you don't notice the mistakes. And then I'll go home and I'll go on YouTube, and people are just like, just laying into this poor guy, Oh my God, how sloppy, how awful, how terrible. And I'm thinking, this is a guy worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He's obviously done something right along the way.
Right. It's kind of like, it's like the Nickelback syndrome, where a couple of people start hating Nickelback, and they don't, there's no reason why they hate them. They hate them because they're so damn popular and they can't get away from that song. It's a good problem to have for Nickelback, so much that they put a documentary out about it, But, people just kind of jump on it. So it's like you just start jumping on, well, we all think Lars sucks train, and it's, but I love when Metallica, and they've all been guilty of it. We've all been guilty of it, making mistakes on stage. And I love the way they handle them these days. They laugh or smile, or, Kirk tries to play an opening riff and it's wrong. And you smile and you go, hey, let's do that one over again. That's the essence of a live concert. And I'm okay if a mistake happens, because you're experiencing a one-off moment with these guys on stage where somebody fucked up, and it's kind of cool. I was there. So, I don't know why Lars gets beat up so much. I mean, they're playing, they're doing their back-to-back stints where they're not repeating one song. And that's a high energy. He's playing at a high level as an older dude, you know? That's a great question. Lars, what have you done to change, your drums to be a little bit more, not aesthetically pleasing, but ergonomically pleasing, so you can, have a little bit of an advantage playing this high intensity stuff at an older age? I'd like to see what changes he's made. By all accounts, his kits kind of look the same over the years. He's maybe lost some toms, but they're up and at a nice, 45-degree angle. And you know, seems like he has everything kind of the way he's been playing all his life. So, you know,
well, he looks like a guy that takes pride in the job. He's obviously a guy who's never let himself go. His body shape and type has always been the same. He looks like he takes care of himself. You know what I mean? I think long gone are the alcoholic days. I think they've tempered it down a little bit. You know what I mean? So like, you know, I think they're all in a good place health wise too.
Yeah, and mental health wise, which is, you know, and something James has talked about. And you know, a lot of musicians, some are now coming out more about that, talking about mental health on the road. Because man, I gotta tell you, it's a weird thing being out there, especially some of these bands doing 180 days out of the year where they're away from home, they're away from their loved one, their butthole dogs that drive them crazy, but then, you know, they miss the hell out of them and just traveling. And you know, everything's so transient and there's so much exchange. You give so much of yourself and, you know, some of these people feel like they don't get anything back. And it's like, man, why do I even go out there? You know, because sometimes it's unfulfilling. You know, your bank account looks better for it, but, you know, is that what it's all about? So you kind of go back to the kid just wanting to play with his friends in the garage and how much fun that was. And when that fun goes away and it's just about the business and the commitment to agencies and Live Nations and, you know, there's an exchange of goods and services there. And I kind of think that sometimes, although they're getting paid handsomely, you know, there's mental health and emotions that get tapped out. And some of these guys just have to find ways to deal with it. And unfortunately, drugs and alcohol is always the first thing because that's easy to get. You know, nobody wants to admit, hey, I got a problem. You know, I'm sad or I don't feel complete or I feel worthless. And that's a hard thing to say for people. And I think that that sentiment's kind of going away, especially in the music industry. People are, you know, doing stuff about mental health and talking about it. So it's a good thing.
Now, so what's your relationship like with touring? Because you did mention that you're a guy in your 50s. You made a great point about sometimes people don't want to leave their creature comforts. You know, if they do, they don't want to leave them for an indeterminate amount of time. You know, what's a comfortable itinerary for you these days? How much touring do you like to do? What's your relationship with touring?
You know, lately it's been a lot of weekend warrior stuff. And I like that. I like coming back home. But if a 2 or 3 week stint came up and it was comfortable, meaning, you know, there's a hotel every night or you're on a bus and you'll get a hotel a couple times a week, I can do that too. I mean, I'm kind of cut out for the road, but I got to tell you, I like the weekends. I like leaving on a Thursday and getting home Sunday, you know, to watch football or whatever it is. And then having the week to, you know, to do whatever. You know, I'm doing my radio show now in its 7th year on Wednesdays. I put that right in the middle of the week for the reason, because, you know, it's kind of away from your typical weekend warrior tour schedule. So
breaks things up.
Yeah, it works out good for that. But I can do both, but I like the weekend warrior stuff. I think it's I think not only from a budgetary standpoint, it makes more sense, but you have to be making a certain guarantee to make that, you know, because obviously you've got flights every week and, you know, a lot of different things that encompass travel expenses. But I certainly like the weekend warrior stuff, but I'll do both. If something comes up and it makes sense, I'm out there. Let's go.
And so talk to me a little bit about This, That, and the Other, the radio show. You just mentioned you've been doing it for 7 years now.
Yeah.
And now where do you do it? Do you actually do it on a radio station?
Yeah, so I'm with a station called dirtyradio.fm. So that's the website, dirtyradio.fm. And we don't have, it's not terrestrial. There's no FM channel for it, but it's an online radio station. They've got 2 channels, Dirty Radio, which is going to be more of the modern rock, you know, Avenged Sevenfold and, you know, Falling in Reverse and Metallica and stuff like that. And then we have Dirty Radio Classics, which is 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And now, you know, as we get a little older, you know, 2000s even, you know, are starting to become classics. And I broadcast on that on Wednesdays live 2 to 5. So, you know, I'm not recording it and sending it in. It happens live as you're hearing it on Wednesday. And if I mess up or something glitches or whatever, we're doing it live. And there's something a little different when you're broadcasting live and you know that the word coming out of your mouth is being heard simultaneously by somebody.
Right.
Instead of doing this thing in your cavern, you know, and oh, I didn't mean to say that. Let me rewind that and redo it. Because I think when you just go off the top of your head about something, then that's your truest emotion about it, you know?
Sure.
Not, you know, because if you get to fix it and change it, then you're kind of not being real, 100% real. So I love
it's
the
losing,
live
it's
aspect.
it's losing authenticity. Yeah,
I think so. I think so. But yeah, you know, short story long, I started about 7 years ago. I did an interview for a guy that had a radio station out here in Vegas. And it was Radio Vegas Rocks was his station. And he had a bootleg transmitter on his house, and he used to cross transmit with this local church. He would take over the Christian radio. He would boost it. He got busted by the FCC too. They didn't do anything. They just told him to take his antenna down. But for a short time, I was actually on FM radio in, you know, like true pirate radio in Las Vegas. But I did an interview with this guy, and he says, hey man, he goes, you got a, you know, good gift of gab. You got a lot of stories. And would you be interested in doing a radio show? You can just spin music, or you can talk. I'm like, no, I want to do, because I grew up on Howard Stern and Johnny B, the WLUP, a lot of talk radio, you know, KFI in LA, Tom Likas, John and Ken show, the regular guys, things like that. So I love talk radio. And while I don't know that I have the gift of gab to talk for 3 hours, who wants to hear that? Not me.
Hard. Yeah.
I try to do 50-50 music, work in some interviews. I do news and nonsense. I talk about, you know, idiots on airplanes that don't know how to behave. And there's, of course, a video, you know, and so I play that audio and talk about travel, well, you know, whatever it is. It's just, you know, the show's this, that, and the other. And so I don't, you know, really actively promote it unless I'm going to have a marquee guest on, because it's like, listen, tune in on Wednesday at 2:00 Pacific. And that's the show, you know.
Right.
And sometimes you're going to get a guest, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're going to get a lot of music, 60-40. It just depends on what's going on. So I enjoy doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do. I've been listening to talk radio. My dad, you know, he talk about music in the household. Well, my dad used to listen to real radio back in the day when, you know, it was theater of the mind. They would, you know, Suspense and stuff like that. So the old time radio shows where you would just listen, and all these actors are in this studio acting out these parts, and you're only hearing it over the little transistor radio, feeling like you're in the movie that they're portraying. So, you know, I grew up on all that stuff. I love it.
Yeah, I love radio too. It's sad. I was just talking about this with my son the other day, because he's thinking about changing careers. And there's a, you know, I didn't really know radio, you know, it was still that powerful of a medium, because nowadays people get in the cars, they're listening to Bluetooth, they're listening to their, but you know, he's thinking about segueing into, there might be a spot open, you know, at a local radio station here, maybe getting himself onto the airwaves. And I was kind of taken back a little bit, because I'm like, radio's still kind of a thing. I mean, I guess I know that it's still a thing. I just didn't really know that, you know, in this day and age where everybody is just like, can't deal with commercials, you know, they want to hear their playlist, they want to hear this, they don't want to have anything interrupted. I didn't know that, like, terrestrial radio, as you put it, you know, was still a viable thing.
Yeah, I don't know that it is. You know, there's I mentioned KFI, which is a big talk radio AM station in LA. I lived in LA for 22 years, so I used to listen to that when I was loading trucks or you know, doing whatever when I worked for a lighting company, and used to listen to those guys all the time. But they just let go a couple of evening DJs on the weekend. And they kind of noted, because terrestrial radio is kind of, you know, suffering, and even a lot of the talk show hosts that I listen to are on like iHeartMedia now. So even though they broadcast on a terrestrial station, a lot of people go to the, like you said, the podcast site and listen to it on demand, so they can skip. You know, our attention spans are so short now that people watching this interview have already left. You know what I mean? They're on to the next thing, you know? But it's, you know, and we have to have everything like right now. And you listen to something for 5 seconds and you're like, oh, I want to go, you know, it's channel surfing, but it's channel surfing everything in your life. It's really weird. We're not stopping and smelling any roses anymore. We're not listening to new bands getting to the chorus. We're skipping up 30 seconds. Let me hear the chorus. It's like the days of hearing something, you know, in real time and experiencing it. It's kind of gone. You know, people just, they just want, you know, they scroll the Instagram, the reels. It's like, are you, you know, you're hearing, but are you really listening? Nobody's really listening. They're just hearing everything. And it's kind of sucky. It kind of sucks,
I wasn't doing the reels for a while, and then someone said, hey, the kids are on Instagram, you got to take little snippets of these interviews, the long form interviews, and put them on there. And I wasn't playing ball for a while. I'm 52 years old too. I was only advertising the episodes on my Facebook and putting them on my YouTube channel. And I have been trying to be better about it. People have said, hey, get your Instagram up to snuff a little bit more. It is a useful promotional tool, take little snippets. But I find that the snippets, and I'm trying to choose them carefully. I'm trying to choose, a poignant part of the conversation where something is either learned or something is explained or whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean? So at least people get something out of the 60 seconds, you know what I mean? But I'm finding that those are doing better on Instagram, as you said, than people sitting in and watching us talk for an hour. They just are.
Exactly. Just getting a snippet, and then they go, hey, wow, that was kind of interesting. What exactly were they talking about? And then they go find the interview. And
then you might drive them over there. Right. Then you might drive them over there. But it is sad. People don't drop the needle and listen to an album the whole time. I asked a lot of musicians on here, does it even make sense anymore to even record? And I guess in the rock and metal world, the LP still makes sense, man. But you're seeing a lot more singles, a lot more EPs, a lot more shorter bodies of work, it seems like. I don't know. Where do you stand on that?
Well, as somebody that has a show that plays new music from a new band, bands that come out, legacy bands, they're putting out 4 or 5 singles before the album even comes out, you know? So the lay of the land in the record industry is so different. And a lot of that's because of, streaming. But I kind of think that a band coming out should, hey, we're going to reform, or I'm going to form a new version of this band, and we're going to put an album out next year. So wait for new music. It's like, I don't think you need to do that. I think you can go in and record a couple singles and use those to kind of get you 6 months down the road.
Yeah.
And then put an album out. But I don't think you need to hold back putting out anything to complete an album. I think those days are unfortunately long gone, because in the era that we grew up in, track 1 and track 4 and track 9, they all had something to do with one another, even though they were their own tracks. Albums aren't like that anymore, really. And if they are, people don't listen to them that way anymore. They just pick the singles and play that.
Yeah, it almost seems like every album back in the day, you make a great point that every album, whether intentional or not, was almost conceptual in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? Yeah. It does seem like all those tracks kind of went together, and the sequencing and the arranging was such an important part of older albums.
100%, yeah, definitely a lost art for sure.
There was a cohesion. You had to listen to it all.
Yeah, and you wanted to.
You wanted to, yeah.
You wanted to shut your door, and if mom was telling you it's time for dinner, it's like, I got 17 minutes left, and I'll be down for dinner. I got to hear what happens, Now
you've got to play with Now you've got to play with so many great people here, and you did mention, looking up the Vinny Appice. But in your travels out there, touring the world, playing festivals, all that stuff, have you got a chance to meet any of your heroes, or have you had that moment where you got to meet someone that was just like a jaw-dropping, holy fuck, I can't believe I just got to meet that person?
I've been real fortunate in playing for the decades that I have been, even as just a side guy, hired gun guy. I've met a lot of these guys like Vinny Appice, and somebody that will see me and will say hi, and we're not friends, but we're certainly friendly, and he knows who I am. And I stop and think about it. I'm like, this is the dude that got me into this,
Yeah.
And he'll see me across the club and go, hey, Troy. And I just sit there and go, God, that's so cool to me. It means a lot, that they consider me a peer somewhat, and that's amazing to me. But, they always say, don't meet your heroes sometimes because they're assholes.
Right.
I've never really had that thing. And I've also, you got to remember, when people are out there and you're getting a quick hello, you don't know what happened in the other, 23 hours and, 59 minutes of their life, because you're just getting a small snippet of their day.
Yep.
So, I never take stuff like that personal, if somebody's kind of a douchebag, but, maybe you caught him in a bad moment. But, I've been pretty fortunate to meet, tons of great people that have been influential and can have a casual conversation, but I don't walk away, taking it for granted. I just go, holy shit, that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, aside from Vinny Appice, are there any other names you could throw out there that you feel like have had an impact on your own playing?
Oh, 100%. Growing up in Chicago with my early teenage band called Brat, I looked up to a band that started to make some waves in the mid 80s called ENUFF. And Vic Fox, obviously, over the years has become a friend, but he's amazing. That's the guy that I watched, you know, when I was like, all right, how do I do this? You know, how does the move go? You know, unfortunately, while some of my friends were learning, you know, 2112 or whatever, I was watching Tommy Lee and Vic Fox do the, you know, that's, I was into that, the showmanship along with being a solid drummer. You know, I didn't get the bug of Berkeley like some of these guys. And, I wish I had, I really do. But that wasn't the case. You know, I did take lessons as a kid, but they taught me, you know, my drum teacher, Jim Urim, taught me how to play to a click track, you know, play to a metronome. You know, hey, if you're going to be in a band, you got to learn to groove and play solid and play to a, you know, to a tempo and not rush. You know, music can breathe, you know, and can kind of do some waves, but, you know, it's got to be, you know, controlled. To, you know, especially if you're going to be in the studio, you got to know how to lay down a click, or if you're playing with a band that has tracks, you got to bury that click track, you know, and stay right on it. But, you know, Vic Fox, and then of course, you know, another Chicago band, the almighty Cheap Trick, Bunny Carlos. I mean, ambidextrous, he could play the same. Sometimes he would show up and his kit would be lefty or righty. He was just that guy, the hands. It's a language I don't speak, I don't understand, but I watch it in awe, going, God, Bun is the guy. You know, I always loved Bunny Carlos. And, you know, Tommy Lee, saw them in Vegas just a month or so ago, and he's still Tommy Lee, you know, and it's great. He's got those big lanky arms and he still slams. And, you know, it's still, you sit there and go, yeah, that's the guy still.
He is the guy. Yeah, I agree. I've seen Motley Crue a whole bunch of times too. And, so, you know, I'm glad you brought them up. They're another band that seems like they take a lot of shit too, and that started a couple of years back with the, you know, are they using the smoke and mirror tricks? Are they using backing tracks? Are they using this? You know, there was that video going around of it seemed like the drums started and Tommy Lee was back behind the kit but wasn't playing anything. And again, me not being a musician, I don't know all the technical terms or all the tricks that they use. But when these bands go out there and do that, you know, are you okay with that? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's always the authentic live experience, but you are going to see them put on a show. Is that kind of a give and take?
Yeah, you know, obviously this is a hot topic, you know, in bands. So I've played in bands that have tracks, you know, lounge acts at casinos. You know, the pay's not super great. You got to play 4 sets. And you've got 2 songs with keyboards. Do you pay a keyboard guy to come down there, get another hotel room, pay him, you know, $250? You don't. So you put it on track, and, you know, I get it. I don't know, bands, you know, it's kind of weird, like Milli Vanilli, right? That band, you know, they were just like,
everybody was appalled. Everybody was appalled back then. Nowadays, probably people wouldn't even blink.
Well, you know, he played there was Rob and Fab. I think Fab is the one that's still alive, right?
Yep.
He played an event down in Cancun with a bunch of pop artists. He came up and sang.
He can sing.
He sings.
He can
and
sing.
Everybody else before and after him are on track, but he was the guy that got, you know, strung up for, you know, doing this.
Right.
When the tape glitched, you know, it's unbelievable. And then, you know, of course, Ashley Simpson, she got busted, and now everybody's doing it, and people can't wait to pay thousands of dollars to go see Dua Lipa or whoever.
Right.
And so, yeah, that part really sucks. Singers like, you know, Vince, when I saw them live, there were some things, some screams, some high pitched screams that were on track. And he was singing with like an auto tune. And sometimes he was so kind of not anywhere near the note that the auto-tune didn't know where to go with it, you know? And there's a lot of singers out there now that are singing with like AI auto-tuning. I think it's lazy and it sucks, you know? For example, I'm out tour managing Don Dokken and the band Dokken. Don's lost his range. He knows that. But does he go out there and sing with an auto-tuner? No, he's found where he can now sing in a lower range. He's got a bass player and a drummer, and the bass player picks up that high range that Don used to be Don's. Now he's got the bass, you know, and they're out there doing it live, you know.
You find a way. And that's authentic, warts and all, you know. And I would rather see
I would rather go see a Dokken than go see somebody miming or with a guide track or using a ridiculous auto tune where sometimes it sounds like a cartoon because the singer is so far away from whatever the note that the software doesn't know where to put it, you know? And then the next step from there is just singing straight the track and just, you know, finding like a good live take so it kind of sounds authentic, and then leave the vocal mic on in between songs so the singer can rap and make it sound like, you know, he's really doing it live. But yeah, I mean, it's weird, you know, keyboards or sound effects that are necessary on tape, not a big deal. But, you know, violin pieces on tape, not a big deal. But when it's like a full vocal, lead vocal, what are we paying for, you know?
But then should the fans be privy to that, though? Like, should they know, like, hey, you know, this is not going to be an authentic live. There may be parts of the show that may be, you know, replicated or enhanced by certain tricks. I mean, you know, when you go see somebody in concert, it is being represented like, hey, I'm going to see these guys live.
Yeah, you know, there should be a disclaimer. I don't know. There's the
disclaimer, yeah.
You know, there's a Prop 65 in California that anything and everything in California sold at anywhere could cause cancer. Right. I don't know if anybody reads that sign, you know, and then you get it. Go, wait, what happened? It's like you go to the show and go, wait, this isn't live.
You were warned. Yeah,
it's like it's on the ticket. But I mean, our artist going to say, you know, any or all of the show may or may not be live. I don't know, man. I think take the money and run and don't say it. But, you know, that's going to have to be fan pressure, you know, where people go, you know, I'm not paying to go see this anymore. It's who's the Frankie? Is it Frankie Valli?
It looks like he's barely alive up there anymore. Yeah, his lips are barely moving, man. It looks like he's like a marionette, like someone's got their hand up his shirt and they're barely moving his lips. I mean, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, it's sad. I almost feel like it's elder abuse, you know, and people are going to pay to see that. Like, yeah, I would rather have a meet and greet with him and just a short exchange than go see him standing up there and you're just wondering if he's going to fall or hurt, you know, like, you know, but people keep pushing him out there. And then the band, he's got like a 10-piece band and the guys are singing and dancing and smiling. And I'm like, yeah, you know, how could you? But you know, listen, I guess a gig is a gig, right?
Yeah, a gig is a gig. Yeah, I mean, he might be trying to still work off that fucking mob money or that mob loan. You know, what I mean, I don't know why he'd still be out there well into his 90s. You know, it seems a little crazy. You know, what I mean, you make a good point. There's other ways to see him, and as you know, concerts nowadays are not cheap, man. So people are forking over a good amount. This isn't the days when concerts were $20 to go see these big stars. You know, they're upwards of like, you know, triple digits, $100 and upwards.
Yeah, it's interesting what motivates some of these older guys going out there and doing it. You know, some of them can still do it. You know, it's amazing. Some of these people just don't have an expiration date on their voice where others do. Right. But you know, when you're in your 90s and you're not even. I mean, I think he's at the point he just doesn't care or doesn't. Yeah. Can't conceive what he's doing. I don't know what's going on with like Frankie Valli, but whoever is handling him, I mean, he said by all accounts, he's out there, you know, on his own volition. You know, he's not you know, nobody's forcing me to go out there, but it's like, okay, well, that's cool. We get it. And he's legendary, but what he's doing right now is not legendary. And I think it's tarnishing his legacy a little bit, you know, but
is it hard maybe just to walk away and, you know, maybe you could speak to this point better as a performer. Is it maybe just hard just to walk away from that kind of acclaim and you know, all the romanticism of the bright lights and the cheering fans and all that stuff? Maybe it's just a little bit hard. Maybe ego enters into it a little bit.
Probably, you know, back to Dokken, right? You know, when I see Don get out there, because, you know, Don's been talking about retiring, you know, and retiring at the end of this year. In fact, we got one more show, the 21st of November in St. Louis at the River City Casino. And he's already taken on 2 more shows next year in Vegas at the Golden Nugget. They do it every 6 months. And I think if the right environment presents itself, I think he's going to take the show. And one thing that I noticed, because people are like, why is Don still doing it at 72? He's had some physical issues. You know, he's broken his ankle. His right hand is paralyzed from a bunk surgery that he had on his spine, you know. But when I go out there and I see him engaging with fans and smiling and waving to the people in the back and you know, really receiving them, I go, that's why he's still out here doing it. You know,
Yeah.
is he doing it at the level he did in the mid 80s and early 90s, you know, vocally? No. And he admits to that, but he's found a way, like you said, you find a way to do it. And he's found the right guys and the right band to go out there and still present those songs. And people still want to go see it. And if you don't know in this day and age that Don Dawkins not singing, you know, at this octave up here, and now he's a little bit down here, but he's got somebody to still hit those notes. He's still got his vibrato. He's still got his charming smile, and he still wants to be there. You know, the travel sucks, and sometimes the food sucks, and sometimes the walk from the hotel room to the gig sucks. But once he gets up on that stage, he wants to be there. You know, and I think that's so. You know, maybe to answer your question, taking the long scenic route, maybe Frankie Vanelli just still wants that. You know, but
sure,
the level he's doing it at is very different than a Don Dawkins because there's no tape at a Dawkins show, you know?
Yeah. And some of it, I think, too, also lends itself to lifestyle, too. I mean, because there is a big difference between, like, I went to see David Lee Roth, you know, 70, 71 years old. But we all know that probably back in the 80s, he hit it pretty hard. You know what I mean? A lot more partying. You know, it was the decade of decadence, the 80s, all that stuff. You know, the stories, the tales of debauchery are obviously legendary with a lot of those bands. And then I go the following month, and I see Steve Winwood, 77 years old, sounds fucking amazing. You know what I mean? So you know, I think a lot of it, and not that he probably didn't do his share of drugs throughout the 60s and the 70s too, but I think it's just like a lot of it might be lifestyle catching up with you too.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw something, John Fogerty doing a medley on one of the late night shows, and he's like 86 or something. I was like, he's kicking ass. The songs are right. You know, they're not slowed down. They're not tuned down. And I'm just like, wow, I hadn't seen him in a long time. And I think for a while, I think he had, I don't know if he had some animosity towards the music industry or whatever, if he's had some run-ins with Spotify, but it seemed like he was, you know, a little anti music industry for a while, but now he's back out there kicking ass and doing another tour, and you know, pretty interesting. You know, you bring up the thing about, you know, singing to tracks and you know, thoughts on that. What about thoughts on, you know, like a Lynyrd Skynyrd and Foreigner teaming up for a tour next year, and there's not one original person in the band, either of the bands. That's another thing that is taking over the music industry, that you know, it's the drummer's roadies version of the band now, you know, which you're really getting deep into the woods there. But what are your thoughts on some of these bands that don't have anybody from
I have a hard time stomaching that, man. That is a very bit difficult. I can even see the two splintered bands. Like for a while there were two Great Whites, or there were two LA Guns. You know what I mean? But there's at least an original member in each faction. You know what I mean? You know, it's like that you can deal with. You know what I mean? Like, you know, for a while Jack Russell had his Great White, and then there was all the other guys. You know what I mean? I can understand that there's at least like a piece of the original band, you know, in each one. You got the voice, Jack Russell, but then you got all the other players with a different singer. I can get that. I can get behind that a little bit. I mean, I want to see that version of Great White that didn't have Jack. You know what I mean? I've seen them with Mark Slaughter, another guy who's figured out how to sing. I think we went to see him. Everyone's waiting for that big moment where he hits those notes in like a song like Flight of the Angels. And it's like, you know, he's found his register. You know what I mean? It's not the big note no more, but it still sounds good though, because he knows like where he's at in life, you know? But I can't get behind these bands that don't have a single original member. I mean, how can you even, you know, at that point you're like a cover band, right?
It's like a sanctioned tribute band, you know? It's
tribute band.
And you have license to put that big banner behind you, which really is what it's all about. If you've got Foreigner behind you, it doesn't matter. And it's interesting, you know, in this day and age, to not know to what level these acts are performing. It's to the same sentiment of, you know, if you don't know that there's not one original guy in some of these bands, or if you look up there and go, oh my God, they've aged so well. And it's like, you know, two of the guys you think that are up there, and I'm not referring to Foreigner or any one particular band, but, you know, name any one of these bands, go, you know, two of the guys that you think are up there have passed away. Right. The other two are, you know, in
a nursing home.
Well, they're homes, you know what I mean? So, a lot of people, but you know, I see stuff online and I just go, wow, people are just completely just not tuned into anything, you know. But listen, this is my, you know, industry. This is your industry. You've got passion for it. So you and I do the research. They're just casual fans that, you know Jukebox Hero, you know.
Right. And I got no problem with those guys going out and making a living, but you make a great point. Putting the foreigner backdrop up there and charging people foreigner money, that's where I had the problem. You can't not have any original members and still be trying to get people to to pull out their wallet and fork over the $100 for a ticket. Then if you're going to be a foreigner, as you put it, tribute band, then it's a $20-$25 ticket if people want to come and hear those songs recreated. But to go out and charge top dollar foreigner type money or whatever band it might be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this economy, I would have a problem with that. But I guess, if people are going to go out there and pay it, that's kind of on them, I guess, too, but
yeah. And it's not picking on Foreigner, but I mean, they are really the band that has laid the blueprint for this. And more and more bands are going, can we go out there and do it with guys that were affiliated with the band, but never affiliated with any of the old albums? And Foreigner's found a way to do that. I mean, obviously, Mick was a part of it, over a decade ago, but you started seeing him less and less to the point where he's not even there anymore. The last time I saw him was a few years ago, and he came up for 3 songs. But at this point, I don't think you'll ever see him on stage again with them.
And I guess if I paid big money and there was the and there was the promise that you were going to get Mick for 3 songs, then maybe you might reach for the wallet a little bit, man. But if he's completely gone and out of the picture, man, then you can't really call it a foreigner show anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, where do you draw the line?
That's maybe you and maybe I, but there are a lot of people out there that don't know that, or they're willing to pay. They want to go see the songs, and they're performed to the best, the best of the best. I mean, and the other part of it is like, Jeff Pilson's been in the band for over 2 decades. Some of those guys, Michael Bluestein, they've been in this band, so you can't take away from that, but it's an interesting band. Not every band could get away with what Foreigner's doing. I mean, they're in an interesting spot. So what do? Do you say, hey, listen, people are still buying tickets to this, and if you don't know by now, after 25 years or whatever, however long it's been, going on, probably in the last decade or so without Mick. So if you don't know by now, then I don't think you're going to be disappointed when you hear the music. But if you look up there and you're like, wait, there's no Lou Gramm. I mean, you want to go see Foreigner, go see Lou Gramm. He's still out there plugging away.
Just do your homework and just be prepared that you might be getting duped, and go on the internet and look and see who the current lineups of these bands are, I guess. I mean,
what I want to do is I want to start a band that is not the band, right? With a bunch of nobodies, and we'll do the entire show on tape. So not only is it a cover band, it'll all be tracked. I'm gonna I'm gonna hit them where it counts.
Just make it a complete ripoff. If people want to be ripped off, give them the full ripoff experience.
There's a lot of people that like to be ripped off in this country. So,
I guess there are. And now, so before I let you out of here, man, what do you have going on, man? As far as like music stuff to promote, what's going on? Plans, tours? How can people get a tap into the radio show? All that stuff.
Yeah, the best way to find anything about what I'm doing is at drummertroy.com. I broadcast live on Wednesdays, this, that, and the other radio show at dirtyradio.fm. But you can stream it right from drummertroy.com. Check it out. It's between 2 and 5 p.m. Pacific. And then on Saturdays, they have a Saturday replay. And it's just news, new music, nonsense, sometimes interviews. No more gigs on the books for me this year outside of just doing a docking thing. This week, actually, in St. Louis. I'll be out there tour managing and finding lost luggage, stuff like that.
Yep.
And then, starting January next year, I've got some stuff going on, and I'll talk about that in January of next year. But drummertroy.com is anything and everything.
Well, you have a platform here, man. This was a fun conversation. So when you do have something going on next year, we'll jump on here and do it again for sure.
100%. I like that there was no agenda, just 2 guys talking about shit that,
That's what I try to keep it. I've tried to take lessons from, not that I'm anywhere in his ballpark, but you know what? In this day and age when everybody's so buried in their device, and I guess in order to watch a podcast, I guess it's a double-edged sword because they'd have to be buried in their device to watch this. I mean, but I like what somebody like Joe Rogan does. I can sit down and watch a couple guys have a conversation.
Yeah, it's about stuff of interest, stuff that affects, if you're a music fan, that's why people are checking out your channel. Yeah, this is stuff that we all have opinions on, and if you don't have an opinion, hopefully we ruffled some feathers for you to make an opinion on that. Next time a band comes through town with tracks, you're gonna lay down the dough, or next time XYZ band comes through with no original members, are you forking down the dough? Something to think about.
Are you gonna listen to Lars and hear Socks in a Dryer? Or shoes in the dryer, sneakers in the dryer. Is that how you put it?
You know, but yeah, I mean,
shoes in the dryer. Yeah.
Listen, I love Lars, and I love what Lars does.
I do
only
too.
Lars can do Lars. You know,
only Lars. Really. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, only Lars can do this. And so you're also out there. People can tap in with you on other places on social media, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Or is the website the best place?
Yeah, website will get you to everything. But yeah, I'm at Drummer Troy at Facebook, at Drummer TPF at X and Instagram. But if you just put in Troy Patrick Farrell, you'll find me in all my police records.
Okay. Don't incriminate yourself. Yeah.
No, heaven forbid.
Listen, man, I appreciate this, man. Really enjoyed the conversation, man. And I will definitely keep in touch, and we'll for sure do this again because it was really fun, man.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for reaching out and having me, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Thanks, Troy. We'll do it again soon, my friend.
Heck yeah. Cheers.
All right. Later, brother.
Bye.
And there he goes, folks. Troy Patrick Farrell. What a great conversation. The man has been behind the drum kit and played with many amazing artists. And again, you can tap into his radio show, This, That, and the Other. You can go to his website for all his, all his touch points on there. He has played with Janie Lane, the Bullet Boys, John Karabi, CC DeVille, White Lion, Tantric, Enuff's Enough, Lost Angels, Gilby Clarke. He has been behind the kit and gotten the opportunity to play with a lot of legendary musicians out there. Has an impressive body of work, and that was an amazing conversation, man. And I'm glad that he noted the fact that we were just two guys kicking it, chopping it up. As I always say when I put these episodes up, you will always see that term used in the description of the episodes on YouTube, and you will also see me use it if you tap into my Facebook page when I promote the episodes. It will say on there, this week, this episode, Rexx chops it up with, and that's what it's all about, man. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just trying to bring conversation back, man. I'm an old school guy, man, and I just like the idea, as I said at the end of the interview, of just people being people and conversating. And hopefully that's what I do here. And I know that's what me and Troy Patrick Farrell just did. So I really enjoyed the conversation, man. Amazing drummer, amazing guy. And that was a lot of fun. So I hope you guys dug that episode. I know I got I didn't get the promotional stuff in. So now I'll do my obligatory promotional spiel, because as you know, if you have a podcast, you got to pimp it. The pimp hand's feeling strong. I'm going to give it a shot. Make sure to tap into Pod Scum on Facebook. Our handle is Off the Couch Boxing and Pod Scum. Don't be confused. I got the little show about the boxing. I got the little show that we do here about the music. I promote them both on one Facebook page. The same with Instagram. Our handle is the same, Off the Couch Boxing and Pod Scum. Tap in with us there as well. And of course, if you're here right now, this is where you're going to get your meat and potatoes. This is where you guys want to be for these incredible conversations like we just had with my guy, Troy Patrick Farrell. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and please make sure to smash that notification bell to stay tapped in so you will be privy when that new content drops. And we are bringing it to you every single week. Sometimes it's an episode, sometimes it's multiple episodes. Really just depends on how productive of a week we've had, how much content we've amassed. But when I get it, I like to roll it out to you guys, man. I'm excited to do these episodes. I'm even more excited to unveil them to you guys. And I will, because I didn't get a chance to, I will address the proverbial elephant in the room now at the end of the episode. I usually do it at the beginning, but I'll do it now. This whole episode, I'm sure you've been looking at these smoldering good looks, these luscious blonde locks. So I will come clean now at the end of the episode that this whole time you have been looking at the one and only love child of one Diamond David Lee Roth. Now I've divulged that. It's out on the table, and we can move on, and I will wrap this thing up. Again, thank you to Troy Patrick Farrell. I really enjoyed the conversation, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Again, please tap in with us on Facebook. Please tap in with us on Instagram. And most importantly, get with us right here, man. Keep your eye peeled for that new content coming your way every single week. I appreciate the viewers. I appreciate the subscribers. And most importantly, the guests, without whom I would not be able to do this. So I appreciate everyone that's been supportive, man. And until we get together and we do this thing again, please remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.